Hello, and welcome to this video on Iroi, the new stereo effects processor from Befaco. Here's what's to come in the video. This video is sponsored by Befaco. So as you may have guessed, Iroi is the right-hand side of Befaco's Oneiroi. And Befaco say that Oneiroi, in Greek mythology, were dark-winged spirits of the night who emerged to bring dreams and nightmares to mortals. Befaco's ambient synthesizer, Oneiroi, takes its name from them, evoking that shifting, dreamlike realm of sound. Iroi is derived from Oneiroi and carries that same essence forward, distilling it into something more compact and open to external signals, while preserving its cinematic feel that connects us to the world of dreams and the unknown. Now, mythology aside, Iroi is that right-hand side of Oneiroi, losing the looper and the oscillator section, and in doing so slimming down to 18 HP. And then also gaining some improvements that came through the development of Oneiroi, and through having extra processing headroom to focus entirely on the effects. Now, 3 things worth noting up front is that lots of what I did in the Oneiroi video applies to Iroi, so if you're wanting more examples and a greater look at all the little details, watch that video after this one. The link for that's down below. Secondly, I've used some Patreon supporter audio later in the video, and as part of that and our community audio projects, thank you to everyone that supports and for the great audio to use in the demos. If you'd like to hear your sounds used in demos like this, head to patreon.com/DivKid to join in. And thirdly, these new textured Befaco panels look a lot darker in real life than you can see here in the video. I use a lot of bright light in producing these videos, and that's grayed them out a little as all the kind of textures pick up and reflect that light on camera. So before the patches, let's run down the panel and the features. We have a stereo input that can also be mono. This goes into a multimode filter with filter frequency control with external CV, which you can attenuate as I'll come to later, and resonance control here. We have a shift function that changes that filter type from low pass to band pass to high pass or a comb filter, and you can also shift function the resonance to change where that filter appears in the audio path. And as well as part of that filter stage, you get a filter VCA here that has a manual level control and a CV input to control that VCA. The resonator is a free band resonator with dedicated tuning and CV for tuning. There's a feedback control and also a shift function for dissonance, which changes that tuning ratio between the 3 bands. And then the resonator has a dry-wet slider here and a CV control over that dry-wet mix too. The echo is a 2-tap delay which can follow an external clock at the sync input here, and you can adjust the time with the density control, and you have CV over that as well. The repeats is your feedback control, and holding shift you can use density there to control a filter specific to that echo. And like the resonator, the echo has a dry-wet slider as well as having CV over that dry-wet control. And for the final effect here we have ambience, and we have a space-time control that is a macro controlling the reverb size, reverb filtering, and the kind of spatial elements of the reverb as well. There's a separate decay control. We've got CV over that space-time, and space-time is actually a bipolar control where it's shortest and brightest at the center, and then going clockwise it gets bigger and finally gets darker and longer at the end. And then counterclockwise from center, we have a reverse style effect. And you have a shift function there for an auto pan control. There's a slider again for that ambience, dry, wet, and an external CV input to control that too. By default, the routing is filter into resonator, into echo, into ambience, but holding shift and turning resonance here as it's labeled second function pause, that's the position of that filter and filter VCA, and you can change that to be in between or after any of the other effects. We have an onboard modulation source, which can work on its own time or sync to external clock via that sync input, with a global modulation level control, and a modulation speed that has a secondary shift function there for type, which is the waveform for its LFO, or on its far side, an envelope follower. There's onboard randomisation that can randomise any or all of the parameters, and you can do that via pressing random or via triggering that externally. There's then a handy map function, which you press map and then switch into what you're controlling. With map enabled and this set to mod, you're selecting the modulation depths on these grey controls of how much that internal modulation routes to these different processors. And then that global mod level controls the overall depth and level of modulation as per what you've set that mod to. With map enabled and going to CV, these four big grey knobs here with their own CV inputs then have CV attenuators. So you can use this mapping and the CV switch to set some attenuation for those external CVs. And finally, switching to rand with that map enabled, you can select how much randomisation could be applied to these parameters to really customise that random behaviour for those button presses or external triggers. So while I mentioned shift functions a few times, it's worth mentioning that Iroi feels quick and easy to get around, everything's labelled, and those shift functions are typically things that you'd kind of set up and then not really change while playing with a patch. It's handy having them all there labelled though. There's plenty of examples in the video as usual. Those are all linked in the timing index in the description and shown now on screen. Do skip around as you like. And without further ado, let's dive in. So here's my first patch with Iroi, and I'm using it as a whole back-end and effects processor for a synth voice. Coming into the module is the output from the Pony VCO here. It's set to be a pulse, and using this attenuator I have some attenuated envelope modulation of pulse width. So very simple, single oscillator, bit of PWM. And then I'm using the onboard VCA and filtering and the effects to round out the voice, with some internal modulation and some external modulation too. If I actually turn down the volumes for these effects processors and open up the filter, you can hear that pulse coming through. And I'm using this blue trace here, a simple decay envelope, fast attack or kind of instant attack, and some decay time to the F at VCA, to the filter VCA there. If I remove that, you can hear that PWM oscillator with the envelope to pulse width coming through. So one thing over Oneiroi here is you get a nicer response from envelopes. I think that's because you've got more processing available on Iroi here when it's not doing the whole left-hand side of the Oneiroi. And then I'm modulating the filters cutoff with a 16th note envelope. So as I bring that down, I have this in an attenuator, so raising the attenuator to CV over filter frequency. You can hear that bub, 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 bub. I'm then using the internal modulation, just everything set as it is out of the box, turning up the depth, that's going to modulate filter cutoff. So let's turn down the external envelope there. And we can hear the LFO moving the filter. I do have sync coming in, which is from my same sequencer that's sequencing the pitch and gating my external envelopes. So using onboard LFO to modulate filter and this yellow trace, yellow cable. And then I'm adding the resonator here. using a unipolar LFO to just get this to fade in and out over time. And I've just tuned that into something complementary to the pitch of the oscillator in the sequence. I then have echo, and I've just set density and repeats to suit, and ambience, with decay and space-time set to suit coming after and delaying. So nice big washy ambience, LFO modulated, resonator effects, and then some external envelope to filter cutoff, internal LFO to filter cutoff, and my main VCA envelope. Taking a single oscillator and creating an interesting stereo whole back end for that voice. So I think it's easy to look at Oneiroi, where Iroi comes from, and kind of think it's more suited to ambient music. And in the last patch we looked at using this just with an oscillator and some envelopes as a whole synth voice. Well, here I want to look at Iroi as just an effects processor after an already full stereo synth voice, and in this context with some nice kind of drum breaks. Those drums are a mixture of synthesis and samples. Let's remove them for now. And I'm using Iroi here for high pass filtering. I've changed its position to be after the effects. If I change those to be before the effects, just holding shift and moving the resonance knob, this high pass will now be first in the chain, and the ambience will live after it, rather than holding shift and moving the filter to the end of the chain. And that filter capturing everything with the effects before it. I'm also using this as a stereo sidechain, ducking against my kick drum. Let's remove all the modulation and just quickly go through. We have the filter that we've mentioned. Have the resonator. Again, just sort of tuned in, just metallic, washy, fun sounds of the filter. With sync coming in here, we have some tempo locked clocked delays, and with space time to the left of center, this is a reverse delay, reverse reverb, reverse ambience effect. And again with the filter at the end. We can filter all those effects too. Now my sidechain here is a 5V offset with an envelope here that I've just inverted against that 5V offset. There's the green trace there on the scope, the blue trace is just 0 volts. So you can see how it's above that and then ducking down to 0. And as I patch that into filter VCA, hopefully you can hear that really just kind of duck and slam out of the way quite aggressively. If I turn the reverb up full, that's maybe more obvious. And as the filter VCA, called the filter VCA because it moves around that position with the filter, that's now at the end of the chain, is ducking all these effects as well. Removing that for a moment, I then have a ramp LFO from my sequencer that takes 1 bar, 16 steps to get to full. And as I patch that into ambience to control that dry wet level, you can hear that build and drop. So anytime I turn ambience up now, this reverse space-time effect is going to be modulated from nothing at the start of the bar to full at the end of the bar. Sidechain back in as well. A little bit of clock delay. Have my nice stereo swelling plucked synth voice with high pass filtering. resonator effects. So here Iroi is doing kind of what it's pitched as, which is just these amazing ambient evolving soundscapes. I'll play around for a moment and then go through the input sound and what I'm doing with it. So pulling the effects down here, and I remove this modulation and the internal modulation. I have a comb filter. Let's just go to a low pass. I've got an already processed stereo, kind of haunted, demented, tortured piano loop with some granular processing and pitch shifting. You can hear it's full of kind of digital artifacts. And that's the dry input sound. Now holding shift and turning the filter cut off there, let's go to CF for a comb filter. And you can hear that lovely phase shifting. Sound of that comb. A little bit of resonance helps. Make that more pronounced vocal-like effect. We can add some slow onboard LFO modulation for this. And then into the resonator. This isn't really tuned to anything, but I've been playing with its tuning. Turning up feedback kind of performatively. Pull into these dissonant kind of howling sounds that kind of bleed over or into that dry input audio. Nice washy delay. Quite a lot of repeats. And I just manually kind of rag that time around on the density control. Just to scrub out this kind of manic sound effect. As intense as it is when you've got the reverb on, which is a left of center counterclockwise reverse space there. And just a little bit of that delay. Ragging that time around. Can work just this nice burst of energy kind of cascading through the ambient effect. So here's two things that I wanted to explore with Iroi. One which is using it as an effects end, although I have some ideas for the next patch that I think improve on that, but it's certainly a parallel kind of end of chain bit of effects to add to my mix here. But the main thing is this randomisation. That's triggering once per bar. We may change that, say, to quarter notes. And as well as randomising its own parameters, I have some external randomisation for the volume of the resonator, echo and ambience. And here's my mix. Drum synthesis, drum samples, and a nice chord tone here. Let's lose that chord tone for now. And just stick with my drums. And let's listen to what's happening in here. Let's unpatch the modulation. And here's that stereo output. Now the randomisation, the random here, we can just trigger with this button. And in this state, what's happening is just randomising all these parameters. If we just listen to, say, the filter, which is set to be a bandpass. Let's go to quarter notes here for triggering that random faster. You can hear both frequency and resonance is being modulated. If we go fully wet on the resonator, All those tuning and feedback controls. Sounds kind of funny, but it sits so well against those drums. Let's just listen to the delay fully wet. With the filter before it and the repeats, the feedback and that time density. A nice scattering random texture. And then with the ambience here. Reverse ambiences, normal forward ambiences, different decay times. Let's add a little bit of everything in. Bring those drums back in. And the chord sound. Muting those dry sounds again, just in my mixer off screen at the top of the case here. I'm using the same clock signal on a stackable to trigger free sample and hold, which is the random step. And I'm using those, if I set these in the middle, to take the resonator, the delay, and the ambience levels up and down, as these sliders don't get randomized with the onboard randomization. So I can randomize all the parameters on Iroi by triggering the random, and also trigger a voltage to change the level, the balance of resonator, echo, and ambience. Bring the dry sound back in the mix. So here we're looking at Iroi as a send effect. And I'm doing so by taking a split of my sound, which is rings in stereo here, using these two stacking cables. And then I'm modulating that filter VCA to control the level on the way in, so like a CV controlled effect send. And then as long as one of these is fully wet, that's going to blend nicely with the original dry sound in the mixer. Now that dry sound by itself, just muting and unmuting off screen here. This is purely the split of rings. And then that split through my modulated Iroi, as is, into a fully wet echo with a little bit of added ambience afterwards. And as I say, it's important with an effect send that something is fully wet in that path, so you're not just stacking dry sound on top of dry sound. My dry sound will live happily in my mixer, and the wet Iroi will then blend nicely with it. So with the filter and the VCA at the start of the chain, just in its default routing position, this is my effect send level. And as well as having the input level as my effect send amount, we also have the filter, which is set as a low pass here, and it's before this delay. So with the level up, I can use the filter, say a resonant one, to swell sound into these wet effects. And I can change the tone that's coming in by modulating it. Let's say just with the onboard modulation. Filtering rings here. This is just Iroi fully wet as a reminder. Works really well with that low pass to just tailor what's going in to the fully wet delay. Now with this envelope that plays at the start of every loop of my sequence, it's kind of a one trigger per pattern thing, have the green trace here, green cable, fading in the VCA, CV controlling my effects send. Just create some space in the mix, just sending some of the sound in, pulling the sound away, letting these echoes feed back around. And certainly with that added long decay bit of ambience after the delay, that's just kind of hanging and sitting nicely. Now I was playing around with this yellow tracing cable here, this step sequence into the CV of space-time. Just quite aggressively stepping that control around. But against the dry sound, because the level's lower, it's the fully wet delay that's feeding it, and just the low level mix of that. I think this really aggressive. You can hear it much clearer there when it's at full. This aggressive step modulation just works as this extra bit of space and ambience around those echoes. So this is just Iroi creating these amazing kind of demonic, haunting drones all by itself. And it's not that wet in terms of kind of wet effects. I mean, it sort of is. There's a lot of ambience. But this starts with an oscillating filter. Now turning the filter up and turning the resonance up, we can hear that it will oscillate. But as you get beyond 75%, like on Oneiroi, there's an inbuilt noise source that modulates that filter. So you get this wonderful, crunchy, noise modulated sound. Almost sounds like background radiation or something. And by sending that into the resonator, let's go fully wet. You can change the filter frequency. To really pick out different harmonics and points of oscillation in that resonator that has quite a lot of feedback around it. All I then did was use the onboard modulation, which is routed to that filter frequency. Nearly fully wet in the resonator, and then let's just push that out into some ambience. So let's just explore the filter quickly here. You've heard it throughout the demo, but we can kind of just stop and take a listen to it here. Low pitch saw wave coming in mono. Waveform here, I'll overlay some spectrum analyzer. And this is the low pass. I'm going to turn the filter cutoff and add resonance. As well as low pass, we have band pass, high pass and comb filtering, and you simply hold shift and then turn that as its second function, say to be a band pass there. we can go from a band, let's just drop the level a touch, to say a high pass. And we can go to a comb that's quite loud, so shift again, round to comb. And of course you could be doing this over a stereo input and choosing where that actually is in the chain around these effects. So here I'm playing around with the envelope follower, and I just wanted to quickly look at modulation mapping. It's really quick and easy to get around. And as I said at the start, you can check out the Oneiroi video for a really full kind of deep look at all the different sections with more examples. But just quickly here, let's turn down the modulation. I'll make this a low pass filter. And here's my incoming drum break. Now, we select the type of modulation as its secondary white back labeled function there just by holding shift. And that selects your LFO waveform or random waves, and we go all the way around to envelope follower. To map modulation, you press map, make sure you're switched up to modulation, and then just turn the thing you want to modulate. But let's just turn that and then come out of mapping. And as I turn the filter down here, and then turn up the overall depth of modulation here, let's add some resonance. Then we have speed, the envelope times on the envelope follower. We can make this say a band pass or a high pass instead. Let's go with high pass there. With that resonant filter, you can hear that modulation. If I was to route this, say, to the resonator as well, we could just press map. We're switched into modulation, turn the amount of modulation that we want to the resonator, come out of map, and you can hear that bending the tuning of that resonator. And routing that modulation is as simple as that, and then you have a global overall level. Let's remove that mapping and just press map, and like I say, turn that down. Keep the resonator static, while we still have our filter mapping. Now you would attenuate CV in a very similar way. If you press map and go to CV on this switch, you can then turn a parameter and control the attenuation of these incoming CV controls. Similarly, you can go to random and change these ranges for when you either trigger via button press or gate or trigger a random change. So here we're just going to explore creating these evolving great ambient textures that Iroi and Oneiroi really excel at. And here's some of my Patreon supporters' audio. This is Truck with a nice guitar loop. And we've got this nice phasing, kind of resonator feedback, splashy echo, and kind of gritty, shoegazy reverse ambience. Pulling these effects down, let's go to a low pass filter, remove the modulation. And here's the audio that Truck sent me for a previous project as part of my community Patreon supporter audio, and thank you to them for doing so. The first thing I did was to hold shift and shift into a comb filter. A little bit of resonance, nice sine LFO for a kind of phaser flanger-like sound. And then with the resonator tuned up full, there's kind of a complementary ringing harmonic, I think, there that up full is quite harsh, but just a bit of it. Maybe a bit less feedback. And then nice two-tap echoes and a reverse space-time for this ambience. So here I have a great modular techno loop from JGB. It's part of Patreon supporter community audio, as all these examples at the end of the video are. If we listen to that dry, I have a copy split in the mixer. And I'm sending just a copy of that whole thing. I wouldn't normally send kind of a whole techno mix into effects. It would be specific parts of it or kind of EQ'd out parts of it. But using the filter here, end of chain, we can really tailor what's happening. If I remove the resonator, echo and space-time, I have a bandpass filter here. And I've shifted its position to the end of the signal chain. So anything I do, like adding an absolute mass of this space-time ambience, I can really tailor where that is in the mix. I'm using the internal LFO to modulate this resonant bandpass, an external LFO to the resonator, just fading in this kind of nice brassy tonal sound that works well with that original loop. We can echo this out a bit, add a load of this space-time, and that just as a kind of background ambient texture. I'll fade it back in against this original loop. So here I'm exploring Iroi as a kind of dub techno, kind of more standard effects thing. A stereo filter, stereo echo, and stereo reverb. If I turn down the ambience and echo effects, this is some audio from Tom Churchill, Patreon supporter audio again. Thanks, Tom. These great sounding chord stabs that come from the Chaos Devices Odessa. Now just having a filter, a stereo filter for these kind of chord stabs, is a nice thing to have to hand, and just a simple LFO to modulate that creates this interesting kind of ebb and flow and push and pull in that top end. But even without that, I'm clocking this in time, and this 2-tap echo works really well. Really dubby, long echo trails there. You can imagine a beat and some of that dry sound playing, and you're just filtering in kind of like an effect send. These lovely dubby echo trails. Now on top of that, nice bright metallic reverb. Which just kind of blisses out those echoes really nicely. I back that off. Bring that LFO back to the filter. We've got these great dubby effects for your chord stabs. So here I'm exploring just a big drone. And a while back Dave Simonson sent this stereo drone over. If I remove these effects and say remove the comb filtering, here's that raw sound. It's an evolving, gritty drone. Now I started with adding a comb filter with some onboard modulation, with some slow kind of phaser effects, tuning in the resonator. It's just a big complementary resonating tone, but also doing something similar with the delay as short as it will go. Creating some short resonance effects too. and then just kind of blissing it out with a ton of ambience. But on top of that, I have an external sound that is just a saw wave into this filter, mixed in with this drone that you're hearing, and as I play with the filter cut off, you can hear that note, and I'm playing an external keyboard. Just experimenting and finding complementary notes to play over the drone. So turning this down, resonator, echo, ambience, and I'll just fade in some notes and play around. So what do you think of Iroi? Do you have an Oneiroi? Is this one more suited to you? Let us know. If you'd like to join the DivKid Discord community, have your audio featured in demos like this one, gaining access to exclusive videos and patchbooks, then head over to patreon.com/DivKid to support us and join. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!